Hello everyone, this is David with the fish, and you can tell by my little friends here that it's obviously wormy bread time, because they do love the wormy bread. So they're going to be watching very carefully to make sure that they get their portion of the worm bread. I keep trying to tell them it's for the worms. They don't care. This is not just another white worm video, which I've been doing for almost 20 years, showing you how to be unbelievably successful raising white worms for your fish. Now, what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you the results I've had using coconut coir. Now, the last couple of years there's been a lot of videos by a few people proclaiming all these new revolutionary ways to grow different live foods. One of the interesting parts of youth is that quite often you're stuck recreating the penalties of the past. What I always look for in these different methods, while we would always like to find a better way to grow grindle worms, vinegar eels, white worms, whatever, what I always look for is the video that shows me enough worms to actually be harvesting and feeding the fish. It's very easy to have enough worms growing on something that you can go, wow, look how many are growing, while at the same time I don't have any to feed the fish. I've tried the white worms that are supposed to be the room temperature guys. Yes, I can keep them alive, but I never could feed the fish anything. And if my hobby was raising worms I can't feed to the fish, that would be great. It just doesn't work. Oh, you can hear the peanut gallery behind me. Must work faster. I've tried the white worms that supposedly grow in a refrigerator. Well, yeah, they sort of do, but once again I never had enough worms to actually feed the fish. Now these days everybody's been out of shape about using peat moss, which of course is the foundation of what I use for the white worms. That somehow or other using coconut coir is cleaner environmentally than using peat. I won't go into, just acknowledge that people have that opinion. If you actually look to see how you get to coconut coir, you'll discover that's a pretty disgusting thing, particularly when you start out with, first you cut down and burn the forest, then you plant it. Kind of like palm oil, sustainable palm oil. Once we've decimated the forest, the palm oil is repeatable. Yeah, but I wanted the forest. So this is the same method I've used for 20 years. It's a whole wheat bread. This particular bread, I haven't been to an Aldi's to get theirs. This is the Kroger. You have to look a lot to find whole wheat bread at Kroger's. It doesn't have cornmeal in it. Very strange. Right back. Okay. I'm going to move this tray over here on the side so we have room to work, and start emptying out the trays from the wine cooler set at 54 degrees. Now, there's always a few left on. This has been 4 days. Wanted to let you know. People write me and go, how come my bread is moldy? I'm doing exactly what you're telling me to do. Well, at 4 days it's moldy. At 2 and 3 days it's not. I tell you to change the bread every 2, at most 3 days. It's because we don't want the mold. Now I'm going to take my plain yogurt. This is yogurt that says right on the container can be used to make yogurt, to start yogurt cultures. I'm going to put that in there, put the top back on. That's not enough to mess with for harvesting. Switch to the next one. These are all done in potting mix. And this one is getting, down the line. It's a very mature culture. And it has a limited amount of time left in it. So when that's true, you harvest it hard. because the worms are working on destroying their own habitat. So as you pull the worms out, one of the things you'll notice as it's getting to be old is if you look underneath the bread's heavy, salt, heavy, and you look and you go, wow, there's not a whole lot of worms in there. This looks more like goo. This is outstanding stuff. Mix it with water, give it to your garden and your plants, because it's basically worm castings. It's all been turned into worm poop. Mine all goes in a bucket, heads out to the compost pile. So, as I said, this one's about done. So we're still going to feed it because we've still got a lot of worms here to get off. But they're starting to abandon ship. So this one's about finished. It'll go another couple of days and I'll get a lot of worms out of it for a couple of days. And then we'll toss it out in the compost and start over. Okay, here's two more. And once again, if you leave your bread 4 days, here's what you get. And then people ask me, it's strange, will my worms eat this? Well, does it look like there's any worms eating it? No. I don't even know if that's the right stuff to make penicillin with. It just looks kind of nasty to me. So we're going to give this one, and we're going to go with a half, because this one will give me an unbelievable amount of worms tomorrow. Now down to the next one. Once again, we're looking at the mold forming. Fungus, mold, whatever. Disgusting. So there's that one. Now we're going to come to the ones of interest. These were started the exact same day. This is on my standard potting mix concoction. It's got a lot of peat moss in it, and you can see the worm population is outstanding. Wow. So we're going full blast here. Just outstanding here with the worms. This is why you put the needlepoint stuff on top. Worms will collect on top. Okay, started the same day. This with the potting mix with peat moss. This next one started the same day. Pretty much the same amount of worms to start with as with coconut coir. Oh boy. I've never done one with coconut coir before. You can tell there's been no shortage of food. Now, the way I did this one is I took an entire pan here of coconut coir. See, you can see the coconut coir. And yes, it's got worms in it. I took a scoop out of one of my other containers and placed it right here in the middle. As you can see, the majority of the worms are still right there in the middle, hovering around what peat moss is left. So, you know, I can't help but look at this and go, they really don't think much of the coconut coir. Yes, they're living, but I'll never get it. It doesn't look like I will ever get enough to feed the fish out of here. And that's the whole purpose. So when this other one here finishes, I will dump them both, because this is dismal. This is the coconut coir. this other beautiful thing was with peat moss. Now, all I can do is tell you that I did my best to treat them the same. Don't do anything to them. Treat them the same to try and get as close as I can to identical results. And it was terrible. These two were started with some, what used to be always potting soil is now turning out in the stores as being raised bed and potting mix. This is mostly a lot of small rocks. Is that weird or what? Small rocks. Don't know how they come up with that for a raised bed mix, but it's small rocks. And if I said the brand, you would know it. Okay, so I can tell you that that doesn't work. You're going to have to get an actual potting mix or seed starter mix, or you can get a bag of peat moss. Buy a bag of just peat moss and use that. So this is my results on my little experiment. The container raised bed mix is not working well for the worms. Coconut coir is a pretty much a, yeah, I can make you a video and show you, wow, see all the worms I'm growing? But I can't feed my fish. What I want is to feed my fish. The rest is not so important. If the worms are happy and multiplying in mass, so I have lots for my fish, then I'm happy. Don't care what I'm using. Coconut coir is not working for me, neither is the raised bed container mix. Now, for the best part of the show, at least as far as how the dogs feel about things, and we get them zoomed in so we can enjoy this. This ends up being pretty much a slaughter. You have to feed the little squeaky one first. The big guy will wait his turn. And the little squeaky guy. Now this gives them some whole wheat bread, which hasn't got much in it, but they get some yogurt with live cultures in it, and they get the yeast, which is outstanding. This is not the yeast that bubbles. This is nutritional yeast. And there's one for that one. And you can tell as a fun time for the dogs is pretty tremendous. So, here's my collection of worms. If I can get us focused here. I'll have to add some bloodworms to it because I let it go too long and they all settle back out looking for food. They're not up front. I'll add some frozen bloodworms to this and I'll have food for my fish. So this is David with a Fish, showing you the results of using the raised bed and container mix that's kind of showing up everywhere this year, and trying to grow worms using coconut coir. Yes, it will grow worms, but the idea is to have a bowl to feed the fish. I won't be using coconut coir anymore. You'll have to make your own decisions, but I've been doing this method for more than 20 years and it has worked wonderfully for more than 20 years. The recipe started out with the Russians back in the early 1900s as they were looking for food to raise fish for feeding to the population. So they did a lot of work. I latched onto it and it has been working for mine. So this is David with a Fish. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.